iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro, what are the differences? Hello dear friends, how are you today? With you, a new and important video, iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro, what are the differences? I hope you like it, but before watching, subscribe to the channel to receive all that is new, and now let's follow the explanation. Apple iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro guide explains the main differences between phones, to help you make the right choice. iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max features. Apple's all-new iPhone lineup for 2022 sure makes last year's iPhone lineup look less attractive, but if you were wondering about the key differences between the flagship iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max and last year's iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, then you've come to the right place. The iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max were the most advanced iPhones for an entire year. The all-new iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max come with new features and functionality with an upgraded display, camera and battery. Here are the differences between iPhone 12 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro. iPhone 14 Pro comparison. iPhone 13 Pro, colors. The iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max come in 5 colors, Alpine Green, Sierra Blue, Gold, Graphite, and Silver. The iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max are only offered in 4 colors instead, Silver, Gold, Space Black, and a new deep purple color that only front ends might want to distinguish themselves. iPhone 14 Pro comparison. iPhone 13 Pro, processor. The iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max both have a better edge up their sleeve. She is their healer. They have an A16 Bionic chip with a 5-core GPU, while the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max have an A15 Bionic chip with a 5-core GPU. The A16 Bionic chip in the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max provides 1 high-performance core and 4 high-efficiency cores. It also houses a powerful 16-core neural engine. The latest chip is faster, more energy efficient, and runs on the latest technologies you'll find on Pro Apple devices in 2022. The processor performs all operations and functions on your device. Thus, the A16 Bionic chip automatically means a more powerful device, longer battery life, greater power efficiency, better graphics, and more. iPhone 14 Pro comparison. iPhone 13 Pro, screen. The display is another component of the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max that will stand out from the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max users out there. That's because Apple is finally giving us something we've wanted for a long time, an always-on display. The always-on display on the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max uses the same technology that comes with the Apple Watch, allowing Apple to slow the refresh rate down to just 1 level to save power. The new technology in the A16 Bionic chip enables even the dim always-on display to bring out beautiful color that plays well with the redesigned lock screen aesthetics in iOS 16. If that wasn't enough, Apple's iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max completely do away with the pill-shaped punch that Apple calls the dynamic island. This feature uses true depth camera system space and pairs it with the true black of an OLED display to provide a dynamic space for apps to display information. It shrinks and grows with usage, and Apple provides an API for third-party app developers to take advantage of this feature. While the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max have the same typical 1000 nits brightness and 1600 nits HDR brightness as their predecessors do, they also have the ability to increase brightness to 2000 nits outdoors and in direct sunlight, which makes it easier to view information on a sunny day where you usually have to stare to see what your iPhone is trying to tell you. The screen size is still the same when comparing the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max to the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max respectively, but newer phones seem to pick up slightly more pixels for the display at 2556 by 1179, A pixel resolution of 460 pixels per inch is compared to a resolution of 2532 by 1170 pixels at a density of 460 pixels per inch for the smaller models, and a resolution of 2796 by 1290 pixels at a resolution of 460 pixels per inch compared to a resolution of 2778 by 1284 pixels at a resolution of 458 pixels per inch. iPhone 14 Pro comparison. iPhone 13 Pro, camera. The optical engine appears on the iPhone 14 Pro. Don't be fooled by appearances in this. While the naked eye may see the same three lenses on the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, there are a lot of key differences within these cameras. The iPhone 14 Pro has a lot of features that we love, and camera improvements are definitely built into that. We'll start with the hardware on both models. The iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max have three lenses. Telephoto, f/2.8. Wide, aperture, 1.78. Ultra-wide, f/2.2 aperture. And here are the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max lenses. Telephoto, f/2.8. Wide, aperture, 1.5. Ultra-wide, aperture, 1.8. iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max feature a 48MP main camera, a 12MP ultra-wide camera, and a 12MP telephoto camera. This compares to the 12MP camera system on the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max across the board and adds a new zoom mode. In addition to the increased megapixels, Apple is improving the low-light camera performance of the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max models compared to the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max models. This includes a dynamic duotone flash system along with the new photonic engine, which delivers more true-to-life color and detail in low light than any regular camera. Even the front camera on the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max captures better low-light support with a larger f/1.9 aperture compared to the f/2.2 aperture on the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max. The front camera on the 2022 Pro phones will also get autofocus support for the first time, as well as support for the optical engine, which means your selfies in low light will be of better quality. The camera improvements can also be attributed to video recording, which captures a new feature that Apple calls Action Mode. This is a new advanced image stabilization unique to the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max that offers nearly the same amount of smoothness as a 3-axis gimbal, built just inside your iPhone. iPhone 14 Pro comparison. iPhone 13 Pro, battery life. Even with the always-on display, powerful new camera technology, and other improvements under the hood, Apple was able to increase battery life on the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max by up to an hour compared to the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro phones Max. Sure, Apple only advertises more battery life while watching video, and you'll likely see small gains elsewhere while you're using your device, too. Various other variations. iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max abandon the SIM tray to become an SIM-only smartphone, while iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max still support physical SIM cards. Support discontinuation of iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max support for iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max get a new high-gravity accelerometer that helps detect car crash accidents. iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max get dual-frequency GPS support. iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max get support for emergency SOS satellite communications with authorities. iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max get support for Bluetooth 5.3 standard. And at the end of the video, thank you for watching and see you in a new video.